I'm really excited to introduce our final set of speakers. George Rodriguez, Vice President of Finance Transformation at McDonald's, and Patrick Pica, Global Finance and Performance Analytics Lead at Accenture. George has more than 25 years of finance, retail, and consumer product goods industry leadership and oversees the global transformation of processes and financial systems at McDonald's. Patrick has 30 years of experience in finance transformation, ERP, and EPM implementation with client experience that ranges from upfront finance strategy and processes and values definition to application and technology enablement. After we hear from George and Patrick, they have graciously agreed to stay on to answer some of your questions. Please make sure to submit any questions via the Q&A button below. George, I don't think McDonald's needs any introduction, but give us a sense of the size and scale of the company, especially your digital presence.
Thank you, Kimberly. Yes, McDonald's is one of those name brands that's recognized by many people. We're in approximately 120 countries in close to approximately 37,000 restaurants worldwide. And you're absolutely right. Over the last few years, we have made a huge shift into this entire new world of digital. Back in 2015, we decided to do one of our largest consumer market studies, and it was extremely helpful in helping us build what is our strategy today. We learned that we needed to improve in many areas of our business, and so as a company, we really pushed forward into that focus.
George, you recognize that McDonald's needed to disrupt itself to become the industry disruptor. Can you tell us a little more about the goals of the Velocity Growth Plan and how they've changed over under COVID-19?
We came up with a three-pronged approach, what we call our Velocity Growth Plan. And it's about experience of the future, which really focuses on the brick and mortar of our restaurants and how they're designed and give that feel of a really clean, modern experience to our customers. We then introduced delivery. That was probably one of our fastest projects implemented, and it speaks to this concept of agility. We'll expand a little bit more that we've been focusing on as a company. And lastly was really the digital piece with our mobile order and pay app. That was a huge success for us. And it's those three principles of our Velocity Growth Plan that we've been really pounding for the last 5 years that I think enabled us to adapt to the current situation very successfully.
Can you share with us some of the goals McDonald's identified for investing in finance technology, as well as the processes needed to fuel future growth?
So yeah, Kimberly, we really focused on two areas that were extremely important to us. Number one was process efficiency. When we sat down with our teams across corporate and markets, we knew that there was a lot of heavy lifting. And so with Accenture's help and the actual capabilities within the tool, we were able to streamline and make these processes a lot more efficient, liberate them from all the data wrangling or redundant data work, and actually help them push forward in the area of analysis and providing better insight. The other area that we really wanted to continue to improve significantly was this strategic business partnership. The way I describe it is that the business is that pilot on that journey, and finance is that co-pilot, and we're constantly helping them adjust, steer, and we do that through the data we gathered, especially in this planning tool that we put in place. We decided to first launch with the EPM set of tools that Oracle has. We signed agreements with ARCS in EPBCS, their planning solution, to really give a two-pronged approach. First, help our global business service teams have a little bit more robustness in the reconciliation process from an accounting controllership perspective. And then from a financial planning, forward-thinking scenario planning approach, we really went into this planning solution with Oracle.
I know one of the things you've worked on was employee empowerment. Can you share a little more about how you took that into account as you were getting started on your journey?
Absolutely. The employee empowerment piece was something that came out right at the beginning. We knew that those generations are used to tools that are intuitive, that they can go out and use and not have to ask questions or ask a technology group to go write a report. And so with the help of Accenture and the capabilities built into Oracle, we have built that capability right in so that our users can, once they're trained on how to access and use the standard reporting and the tools, they can quickly build their own reporting capabilities, perform their own analysis, and continue to provide that strategic business partnership aspect that we spoke to about.
This was a key area that we talked about throughout the early days of the implementation, Kimberly, when we were designing it. Because one of the challenges that McDonald's had in the different markets is an individual market might have insights, but they spend so much time collecting data. They didn't spend enough time focusing on the insights to really make good business decisions.
Patrick, Accenture was selected as McDonald's implementation partner, in part thanks to your Agile approach, which enables real-time feedback and user adoption to ensure a successful deployment. Sounds like it's working. Can you please tell us more?
When we sat down to talk to McDonald's about this initiative, one of the keys that we brought forward to George and others was the best way, the way we recommend to approach these kind of initiatives is through iterations. It's through getting the hands on the keyboard, seeing the application, seeing the processes. And so we initially described this approach as kind of a hybrid Agile, but it's kind of morphed into really a true Agile approach to doing implementations. We found that's really valuable in multidimensional planning type applications for users to visualize and see what they're working with, to actually get their hands on an application. And so our approach really is to bring the key business users together with IT, with the project team, talk about what the priorities are, talk about what the goals and objectives are for this initiative, get them to align in what they are, then we test, vet with them, then we build a sprint, a prototype, we show it to them, we get their feedback, and we roll through. And it's this kind of approach that's really collaborative. It brings together everybody, and it's a key step forward to winning the hearts and minds of a lot of the people on the program.
Thank you, Patrick, for that insightful answer. So, George, how has an Agile approach allowed McDonald's to move quickly and build success for further transformation initiatives? And maybe you could give us just a few examples.
Kimberly, the Agile approach has been a pivotal part of our success. We incorporated this methodology at the same time as some of our other partners in the organization. What we did was really adjust it to make it that hybrid approach and get the sense that everybody had a seat at the table. The user cases were really important. But I think what also was beneficial is that we took some learning cases from other markets. For example, in Germany, they were the first market to actually use an Oracle Cloud solution on their own. And prior to that, they had been on a 7-year journey of implementing Oracle planning solution on premise. We took a lot of the learnings there, and as they became this first step implementation, leverage that into our planning releases. Then from there, we've now implemented in Australia, New Zealand, France, United Kingdom, Poland, Austria, and we've got another 12 to 14 markets to go across all of Europe So the agility is what's been really resonating and with amongst those markets, and it's been fantastic feedback we've received.
I think from a value perspective for McDonald's, right, we really were able to cut down the amount of time they spent in planning, right? So McDonald's had moved from a very decentralized operating model where they did their finance and accounting, and especially FP&A, in a more decentralized manner towards the market. So even though there was common goals and objectives, they were very disconnected. There was a lot of manual effort, a lot of, as George mentioned earlier, a lot of Excel spreadsheet wrangling. So one of the things, the keys that we did was to help put in that mostly standard approach for them to tie it all together with Oracle's EPBCS capability and streamline that process. We reduced significantly the amount of time they spent on capturing data, right? Upwards towards 50% of the time that they were spending gathering data, reconciling data, populating spreadsheets, sending them back and forth via email. We were able to cut that down significantly by putting it into the standard process in EPBCS and streamlining that.
If I could add to that, I think probably one of the best stories we can share with respect to that as well from a finance perspective was that in the early goings, Patrick and I were in the team, we're doing a report inventory, and we stopped counting at 400 reports. And then we printed them out, and we stopped printing at 5 feet of actual 8.5, 11 reports, okay? And we decided that, you know, it was a good idea to try to figure out what everybody's using, but instead of going through the exercise, we were able to just come up with a decision amongst the markets and get down to 30 standardized reports with a little bit of, like we said, mostly standard, some adjustments here and there for the market.
Thank you for that, George and Patrick. It sounds like your goals of agility, process efficiency, employee empowerment, and finance being a strategic business partner are great building blocks to fuel future growth. So great news about that. So now as we start talking about some of the emerging best practices that McDonald's has adopted since COVID-19 hit, how are you changing or the way that you work or adopting any of those emerging best practices? And George, I'm directing that question to you.
We were watching and monitoring COVID very early as an organization, and we were having internal discussions. I've got 2 great partners internally from our global technology team and our FP&A team, in the sense that they were understanding very early what this impact would have. And also, you know, I can't say enough of Accenture and Oracle. As we were deploying this release, we quickly adapted, as many have now, into virtual you know, sessions, just like we're doing now. But we were in that rhythm already probably in the middle of February. We were already switching to virtual, just getting ahead of the situation because we wanted to keep the momentum going. We also accommodated our timelines and our resource needs because that initial impact from COVID, especially to our finance teams, was huge. I mean, you no longer are planning in a rhythm, you're now planning out of rhythm with new curveballs every day, not necessarily at the end of the month. And so we had to adjust our demands on our project teams as well as our corporate teams to allow them to deal with the current situation. And then the amount of virtual tools that we've leveraged and the flexibility, as well as Oracle, who is a semi-virtual company already, the fact that they could adjust at our pace and help us adjust was phenomenal.
From a leading practices perspective, the things that were really important for us when we started, I think only got magnified with COVID, right? That the COVID experience just really put a spotlight on some of the key things. The standards were really important, right? Helping to define standards for the organization, even if it wasn't standard everything, but mostly standard, that was really important, right? It was really important for us to put in a governance process to govern the data, to control the data, to ensure that it had continued integrity. Because one of the things we really wanted was a scenario modeling capability, a capability to say, what if this happens? Then this is going to be the impact on cost, on margin, on sales, on customer, on people. right? So having that ability to model the various changes was extremely important come COVID. I don't think anybody could have planned what really happened, but enabling a capability built on a foundation of control and that you could trust the data is critical to doing that scenario modeling. You know, the other area that we talk about, which is really important for taking some of the manual work out, is drivers. Having drivers built in so you understand what are the core drivers for cost, what are the core drivers for sales, what are the core drivers for demand. So you understand those drivers and you can bake those into the plan. It's more of an analytic mindset that we're helping to develop and build that now also allows us to plan and forecast at different intervals, at different scenarios, right? Whether we're doing a strategic 3, 4, 5-year plan, whether we're doing an annual plan forecast, or whether we're doing revised forecasts.
Yeah, Kimberly, if I can add on that, although we were somewhat of a driver-based organization, like Patrick said, we were 100% decentralized. And so now when you you start moving an entire organization into a centralized planning model that is driver-based, it does create a lot of change management. And so that was probably the areas we also learned is that even though we had some of these influences, standardize them and you know, the mostly standard phrase that we've used or mentioned was very helpful in getting the organization to move in that direction.
So now let's talk a little bit more about the keys to success. And I'd love to hear from both you and Patrick George on what some of those are. And maybe you could just provide us some great examples of how this partnership worked. So maybe Patrick, you get started, and then we'd love to hear from George as well.
You know, I think one of the early foundations to success was the partnership that McDonald's, Oracle, Accenture had. So when we were lucky enough to be awarded the work with McDonald's, we had started the conversations with Oracle and Oracle development to really understand how is the latest versioning of the planning cloud software going to enable new things or address challenges that McDonald's has, right? Knowing that this was going to be a global deployment, that it was going to cross the globe, literally cross the globe, right? From Asia to Europe to the Americas, it was going to go everywhere. We knew it was going to be really important to bring Oracle to the table and get the insights both from their development team as well as from their sales, marketing, and client relationship as well.
Also, the other aspect is that Oracle integrated their development teams into our projects very early. In ARCS, in EPBCS, and now in Oracle Cloud, we have Oracle development team members working alongside of us, helping us and Accenture from their learnings as they go through their consulting work with us, help us steer us in the right direction to improve the tools to make us more successful.
So, but what's next? I mean, you've had some amazing success. Hopefully some of those doubting people are now on board because they see the benefits. So what's next in your finance transformation journey?
Kimberly, we've got a lot on our plate. In conjunction with Oracle and Accenture, we're going to be launching into our Cloud ERP rollout. We're going to be introducing our first pilot market, which is Australia and New Zealand, in 2021. And then going on a 3 to 4 year journey and getting the remaining 16 markets across Europe. From there, we're also simultaneously implementing FCCS, which is another tool in the EPM suite that is going to help us bring in our consolidations and additional reporting to our corporate teams to oversee all that. Also upcoming, I believe we're moving our on-premise Oracle EBS solution for North America onto the Oracle Cloud infrastructure. That's a big move for us. And so if the theme sounds familiar, we continue to move into these cloud tools across all the markets. And again, it's just a testament of the power of the Oracle solution and the partnership we have with Accenture and Oracle.
Well, thank you for that. So now before we jump into our questions, I just want to again thank you, George, for the time. You've been so gracious to answer our questions about your journey and talk with us about your lessons learned and best practices. And thank you, Patrick, for sharing with us about your agile approach and mostly standard messaging. I think that works. Just so many lessons learned for me personally, and I hope that everyone who had an opportunity to view today got as well. So thank you.